My father was graduate from Hokkaido University and School of Medicine, and he went to the physiology and temperature regulation. And because of that topics, he had a chance to know Professor Ashoff, because as you know, Professor Ashoff was deeply involved in the temperature regulation in humans in the middle of 1950. My father wrote to him expressing his wish to study by him in Heidelberg. And my father went to Heidelberg for 1 year, but unfortunately, he couldn't finish his studies because of his travel in the universities, and he had to come back earlier than he expected. And that first big one between Japan and Germany relationship in terms of chronobiology. And I met Professor Ashoff for the first time in 1965. Just he started to experiment of human circadian system, and he was invited to Japan by Society of Physiology, Japanese Society of Physiology, and give a lecture to the annual meeting. And because my father was already at that time the friend of him, so my father invited him to Hokkaido, Sapporo, and Professor Ashoff stayed at my house for a couple of days. At that time, I was a medical student, and I met him, and maybe I talked about something, but unfortunately, I couldn't remember that. But I clearly remember his talk. He gave a lecture to a student, and his topics was related to the human circadian system, and I was so impressed by the systems the bunker isolated from human, isolated from the day-night alternation, and so without any time cues. Later, I graduated from medical schools and went to the psychiatry for a couple of years. And I used to be a psychiatrist. And of course I remembered Professor Ashoff, and Professor Ashoff is involved in circadianism, but at that time we have had very little connection between psychiatry and circadian rhythms at that time, early in late 1960. But one of my patients, I remembered, she was so-called periodic hypersomnia. And I don't know, this term was still alive, or the disease, periodic hypersomnia. And so the patient continued to sleep for whole weeks, or looks like sleep, but just drowsy or something like that. But after that, she woke up spontaneously and behaved like ordinary persons. And several weeks or months later, she went to the same conditions. And I know the Japanese names of disease, but I don't know the English expressions. That disease was so impressed me, and I also remember the Ashoff's studies, circadian rhythms, and I decided to go to physiology to investigate more the periodicity in humans. And but unfortunately, at that time, we didn't have any tools to study humans' circadian systems in Hokkaido University. So I was mainly involved in the animal experiment. After graduation, after PhD thesis, I wanted to study abroad. That usual way Japanese scientists took. And I had several possibilities, but I wanted to go to Germany because the Professor Ashok's influence. But unfortunately, at that time, she didn't have enough space, and I had a chance to study puberty onset at a different Max Planck Institute in Göttingen. But because I was so eager to do human experiment, and the latter half of my study abroad was spent in Andex and stayed there 3 months. And that was a very happy days. I stayed whole period in the Ashok's Shiros, and the corner of the. Do you remember the room? The study I did actually there was something to do with food restrictions and entrapment to feedings. But at the same time, I had a chance to get into the bunker as a subject and stay there for years, 3 nights or something.
Which number?
I don't have a number. I didn't have a number.
Because I've got all the numbers.
Oh really? Oh, maybe they had, but it just so-called window shopping, something like that. I wanted to know what is going on, yeah, what is going on in the inside bunker. So because at that time I have already planned to build the similar isolation facility in Hokkaido University, and so I had to see inside the bunker.
What year was this then? This was very early.
Very early, 1978.
And it's only 10 years after the bunker had been
Yes.
functioning.
Yes.
You already wanted to build one.
Yeah. After returning from Germany, I had a position. I got a position at Hokkaido University, and but we need lots of money to build such a kind of bunker, underground bunker. So I couldn't find any grant to build that kind of bunker. So my enthusiasm to have such a experimental facility was so large, and so I asked a hospital. And there was almost empty houses, so I asked to borrow me, and I rebuilt the building, whole building, to do in order to isolation experiment, and that works actually. So from 1983. 1984, I started my experiment in human subjects there. At that time, the question was whether the bright light was reset to the human circadian system or not. You involved already at that time. We had a very nice meeting at Notvara, and we started that experiment. So did have some result and published already, and continue until now a similar experiment.
The first phase response curve.
Yes, fast phase response curve. To light.
With a single pulse.
With a single pulse. My experiment is still going on to identify the real cytogabers, and to human beings, the circadian system in humans, the cytogaber, the most potent cytogaber, of course, the bright light, but I think other periodic factors such as the social or the physical or etc. may also be a potential side givers. And that idea that I have at that time after the bright light experiment. Meanwhile, as you know, the Saj Dan, Birsmas and Boveri published a paper describing the S and C processes. Very famous, and almost all people believe that. But I have some questions and I have some doubt about that. So, but it is very difficult to do to elucidate the mechanisms underlying the human circadian system and sleep. So I wanted to have annual models. Just at the same time, we found the methamphetamine modified the locomotor activity of rats very robustly and dramatically. But this finding was by accident. So, on the other hand, we were deeply involved in the animal experiment, and to establish the annual model for human circadian system. And 20 years, more than 20 years, has passed.
And you're still doing it?
Yes. My major concern is on human circadian system, but in order to understand the human circadian system, we need animal experiment, as I mentioned, and the last 2 decades, extraordinary advances in our knowledge and techniques and so on in the field of chronobiology. So because of this stream of biology, I and my wife and my student will go this side and go this side, and so sometimes involving clock genes, sometimes behavior, sometimes neuroendocrine, sometimes and so on. But the final goal is, of course, the human circadian system. And I'm also interested in the diseases related to the circadian system. And most of my subjects were medical students. And some of them showed funny behaviors in circadian systems. And for example, 24-hour, non-24-hour sleep-wake cycles, and this partial entrainment or something like that. So sometime I had a chance to examine the effect of melatonin to these peoples, and sometimes I join with that vitamin B12. That was so interesting. Coming back to the early scientific careers in late 1984, we decided to start the symposium called the Sapporo Symposium on Biological Rhythms. The idea of this symposium came from the friendship between my father and Professor Ashos. Because my father, he was a scientist, but unfortunately he had to retire from the scientific life because of his illness, and but his wishes to contribute to science continued afterwards. And in 1981 or two maybe, Ashok came again Jürgen came again to Sapporo, and they talk about that idea. My father wanted to contribute to this field. At that time, he ran companies, trade companies between Japan and China, and he succeeded. So he proposed, maybe Jürgen Aschoff proposed to inspire young people in Japan in the field of chronobiology. At that time, we were so small. I could count less than 100 who were studying chronobiology. So one is to have a symposium regularly, biannually, every second years, to get informations, exchange ideas, and make friendships, something like that. And the other one is to give a prize, institute a prize, so that Aschoff Honma prize. So these two activities were continued for more than 20 years. So we had 10 times every second year. Yes. The last time is the 10th Sapporo Symposium on biological resonance. This, I think, this is activity was very effective to activate the Japanese chronobiology. Nowadays, more than 500 scientists were involved in this field of science.
The Sapporo Symposium was not only an inspiration for Japanese chronobiology,
Yes.
but the prize
Mm-hmm.
was the most important prize. It was the only prize, and it became more and more important. And to be invited was
Mhm.
a great honor, and I
Mhm.
think it became internationally the meeting that you wanted to go to hear new things.
I'm very happy to hear that.
Well, this is the opinion of many
Mhm.
people
Mhm.
all over the world, that the Sapporo Symposium and those lovely books that
Yes.
are on my, the difficulties of transcribing the discussions. That was such
yeah.
hard work. It took years to
Yes,
get to that.
yes. That unexpected side effect of the symposium, we didn't intend to publish that kind of books so every time, but fortunately we are able to get some support from our government, and we are able to continue
Those
publishing.
were-
Yes.
Those were beautiful books produced, and you very rarely have the discussion.
Mm-hmm.
There is another series, the SIBA Symposium,
Yeah,
they have
yeah.
discussion. And there you see what Mike Menneker said in 1987.
Yes, yes.
Or something, and what Vinnie Casone said or something, and you get the interaction of scientists,
Yeah,
the way discussion occurs.
But the situation was very funny at the very beginning of this activity. The first symposium, we invited several scientists from abroad, including Jürgen Aschoff, of course. But most symposists were Japanese. So, but language was English. So we Japanese talk in English to each other. That's a very funny situation, but that improve our conversation techniques in English. And in these days, the younger generation speaks nice English. I believe that. At present, it's a happy memory, but at that time, it's very hard to communicate in English. Yes, with Japanese. Yes, we didn't have very small chances, very few chances to talk in English in Japan. Oh, I remember the side effect number 3. The Sapporo Symposium made friendship between many countries, US, Germany, Switzerland, Netherlands, and so on. And that make we had many opportunity to send our student to the laboratory abroad. And especially we had a special connection with United States, the people in United States at the time of biological timing. At the same time, we were able to get money from government and communicate with people in biological timing in USS continuously for, I think, 8 years, something like that. So we visited Charlottesville and Northwesterns and so on and so on. And they came to us once a year, and communication was promoted very much.
That's not a side effect, that's a main effect.
Yeah, I think so. If we are the second generation of biological clocks or the chronobiology in Japan, the third generation we can see all of Japan, and most of them had a chance to go to United States or the Europe or England. Very few, but Dr. Kiyohisa Takahashi joined us from the very beginning. The Sapporo Symposium, and he's a psychiatrist and have a role in clinical side of chronobiology. I'm a physiologist, so contribute to the more basic field. Yes.
Complementary.
Yes, complementary. Yes, complementary. And he became very influential people in the field of clinics and, of course, Japanese psychiatric societies. So that's the other aspect of chronobiology in Japan. 20 years ago, more than 20 years ago, we had two societies. One is a basic, the other one is a clinic. And 10 years ago, the two society get together and combined and make new societies. Yes, it's very seldom happened in Japan. Usually the big society is separated into the small and separate. But we did the other ways. Small, at that time, not small, just middle. So combined to make larger societies. Our society, of course, I myself want to communicate more. So we are our connection between Japan and the United States has been very strong. But we wanted to have similar relationship between Europe and other countries, and that idea to build a World Congress, World Society for Chronobiology a couple of years ago. But I'm not sure this activity is able to continue or not. But communication is in the individual levels, but I think we should do more higher levels, systematical, because individuals who usually very busy and it's hard to think about many things. So some organizations should do such kind of activities. For example, finding a proper place to studies. Of course, we have already SRBR or Golden Conference, but very limited number of people are able to join them. So more younger people and the beginner in that field should be attend, for example, big persons. And my attitude to these things was influenced very much by Professor Ashoff. And he was such a person. Do you remember that sometimes he told me that the person who I invited to the small meeting, that Professor Ashoff, I should behave like a guest to anybody who I invited, even he is or she is a student. Just treat as a scientist. And yes, our world is so complicated, and there is a limitation to communicate, unfortunately. But Jürgen Ashoff told always not exclude people, but include, and so let them know what we are doing here. So that's the best way to make friendship.